I'm in Manning, South Carolina, speaking with Cag Brunson. And Cag, this farm has several people involved, and it is called
Oak 3 Farms. It started with my dad, my brother-in-law, Troy Allen, and myself. That's where the 3 came from.
And I believe that one of your sons is now involved as well.
I have my oldest sons involved with the farming operation, along with my nephew, Troy's son.
It's nice to see that tradition going on, especially with people who know how hard the work is. This is an incredible investment and for the future, because what we are sitting in is a very large asparagus field.
Yes, ma'am. Exactly.
And I remember when we had over 10,000 acres. I've heard the stories in South Carolina. My mother and some other family members have said that they would say, "Oh, Mama, do we have to have asparagus again?" Because when it comes in, you have to pick it every day.
Exactly. We usually harvest every other day. We have half in Manning and half in Somerton. And what we don't cut, we'll cut Manning today, Somerton tomorrow. Then we come back to Manning the next day. So it's an every other day operation as far as harvesting on the same field.
A lot of people like to stare at their plants and think, oh, they're never going to come out of the ground. I don't think people have that problem with asparagus.
No, ma'am. You can all but watch it grow.
You have to kind of plan ahead, though, because talk to me about the process of putting asparagus in the field and how long you have to wait and all those factors.
Well, we started this process. Typically, they say you need to wait 3 years before harvest. That way it gives you a crown, which is what you plant in the very beginning. It kind of expands under the ground before you start getting your spears, which is what you buy in the grocery store. We plant the crowns 8 to 9 inches deep, and we plant them every 8 to 10 inches apart on a transplanter as we go throughout the field. Once we get them planted and everything leveled up, it usually takes about 3 years before your first harvest.
Because of disease problems and just being efficient watering, I believe you went ahead and put irrigation in as well.
We did. We decided to go, because of the size of this field, this overhead irrigation wasn't feasible. So we put in drip irrigation, which we actually run drip lines down every other row. Therefore, we feed with water each row. And
asparagus, I believe, because of the way they grow so fast, are pretty heavy feeders. Can you tell me about that, and can you fertilize them through the drip irrigation system?
We can. We usually fertilize with minor elements through the drip irrigation, but throughout the year, 3 or 4 times throughout the year, we spread fertilizer to feed that crown, because that, in essence, that crown is what's giving you your spears. So you want a healthy crown to get healthy, big diameter spears.
And you started, it of course changes from year to year, but generally you can harvest for how long?
Typically 6 to 8 weeks is a normal harvest in our area.
And you begin?
We usually begin, depending upon the weather. The weather dictates pretty much when you're going to start harvesting. This year just happened to be, we had a lot of 80-degree February weather, so we started early March. Normally, if it's a normal type weather, you might not start till the middle of March or towards the end of March, but this year we were able to start around the first week of March.
You have some very experienced people out here cutting the asparagus. It is an arduous task, so tell us what they do and what they're looking for, please, as they work out here every day.
Yes, ma'am. Typically, the guys know by now we have a training process. We watch videos in the very beginning to train everyone, and a spear, you don't want to cut the spear less than 8 inches or any longer than a foot. And we trim the bottoms, therefore, to keep it that perfect length.
And then at some point you have to stop cutting that crown.
When your spears become too small in diameter, what we call a shoestring spear, we usually halt harvest for the year. That's a sign, a telltale sign that the crown is kind of giving out for that year.
But then it's going to replenish, and in such a beautiful way. What comes next?
The fern. The fern is what comes next. When you quit harvesting the spears, then your fern grows, and it'll grow into a lush, healthy plant.
And it's with the cold, it's killed by the cold. But that until the cold, which comes in kind of late now, it's replenishing that wonderful crown.
Exactly. It sure is.
As they are harvesting, they're making initial decisions as they cut, and then they as they begin the first step of processing, they're cleaning them up to the length you want and putting them in the box in different directions, because did you tell me that they might turn upwards if you don't kind of cross over them some?
Typically we layer them, layer them as we're cutting them before, just to keep them. They grow so fast, and if anything happens, they will start turning up. So until we get them to the packing shed, the hydro cooler, we layer them as we cut.
And cooling is very important to get a quality product to the consumer. So what do you do? What happens at the next step?
Typically we make 2 to 3 trips, depending upon the temperature outside. That's a huge factor in. But typically we make 2 to 3 trips to the packing shed where the hydro cooler is set up a day, so that we want them as fresh as possible.
And that means when we go to the grocery store here, we might see fresh South Carolina asparagus, which is, you know, nothing's fine or nothing's better than certified South Carolina. And what is the name that we might look for?
Elite Pack USA LLC is one of the labels. There's one of the labels on them, and they'll have the South Carolina fresh produce. You know, that's South Carolina asparagus.
Now there's everybody always wants something different. So you have another field where you're going something that some people might say, oh, I don't know about that.
We have, it's not many acres. We only have 8 acres of a purple asparagus. Regular consumer doesn't know anything about a purple asparagus, but the health benefits are actually a little bit better than the green, but it's just a little different color. Sometimes when you cook it up, it'll turn more green, but it is a purple asparagus.
Yeah, and it's just so pretty. If you were just doing decorations, because you have people over, you might want to put a few out before you cook them to keep that beautiful purple color. And I like to roast my asparagus, and I was telling you that I've started putting sesame oil on mine, and I want you to try that and tell me what you think.
Definitely gonna try it.
Okay. Well, this has just been so exciting. It reminds me of my mother and of all the people that I know. Mr. Winges, who grew them on his farm right outside of St. Matthews, where my friend Hank Stallworth lives now. There's such a history of asparagus, and I want to thank you for being forward-thinking and bringing back a crop that was important in the past and is now, again, an important part of South Carolina fresh produce.
Well, thank you for coming.